Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Jalila Ismailinde, the Executive Masters in Islamic Finance class. And this is for the Islamic Social Finance presentation. I'll be sharing my screen to make this presentation. My chosen topic is Accord Hassan Zakat Integrated Financing Model for addressing working capital constraints among smallholder farmers in northern Nigeria, West Africa. So I'll be sharing my screen to make this presentation. Okay, so my topic for my project is a Khorasan Zakat integrated financing model for addressing working capital constraints among smallholder farmers. This is the cover page. I'll move to the next slide, which stipulates the presentation outline. I have the introduction, literature review, and review of general trends, Qad Hassan and agricultural financing, challenges with smallholder farmers in Nigeria and even around the world, Islamic finance in Nigeria, proposed Qad Hassan Zakat integrated financing model, components and operational workflow, the governance and compliance expected outcomes, conceptual framework, policy recommendation, and conclusion. Okay, an introduction. So farming in Nigeria was the main occupation before, and that's how we kind of got our foreign reserves before the discovery of oil in the 1960s. So for every community, farmers made their own food, grew their own crops, and in the nooks and crannies of the country, you see smallholder farmers. With the discovery of oil in Nigeria, a lot of people moved to the city, and the smallholder farmers would still are in the rural areas, but there's still a lot of everyone has kind of abandoned agriculture and gone to the cities to get professional jobs. But at the end of the day, the country has to feed itself. So the smallholder farmers still make the crops, grow the crops, but still have challenges because they're in the rural area. The social economic situation of those communities, and also in terms of the environment, in some communities there erosion, some communities are going through drought, and at the end of the day, the small farmers are not as sophisticated as you will see in some agricultural environments outside in the developed world. So the roles of the small farmers in Nigeria, they're critical to the food production, but they face persistent financial constraints. They're located in the rural part, they're not in the city. And the challenge is, their dependence in terms of financing is on informal lenders, high interest rates, collateral barriers, and low investment, which would then turn to poor yield because there's sophistication in agriculture these days, and the farmers are still using the old ways. So unfortunately, they need money. They get this money. It's conventional loans. There's a collateral barrier because they're in the rural area, and because they are not, even if they get this financing on high interest rates, by the time they produce, they have poor yields because they're not using the sophistication of fertilizer and this new ways of using mechanized farming. But we believe that Islamic finance can bring a solution to the needs of the farmers. So where I'm proposing in this paper an Islamic finance solution of integrating zakat and Qad Hassan. And the objective is to be able to blend zakat. Zakat is the one of the pillars of Islam where the rich pay would take out of their wealth 2.5% on a yearly basis of their savings for the whole year. Qad Hassan. Qad Hassan is a benevolent loan. As we know, Islamic finance, Islam forbids riba. So in Islam, if you give a loan, it's a benevolent loan. It's an interest-free loan. It's a loan that you would give and you'll get the same amount back. So we believe by integrating zakat and a Qad Hassan solution, this would bring succor to the smallholder farmers. So zakat, the non-repayable support for the poorest in the community, the 8 categories, and the Qad Hassan, which is a benevolent interest-free loan, would align with the farmers' seasonal cycles. And the objective is to bring an integrated zakat plus Qad Hassan, a blend to provide both immediate assistance, which will be from the zakat, and a sustainable financial solution, which is from the Qad Hassan. Next slide. So from the literature review, reviewing different studies that have been done on the use of Qad Hassan and the use of zakat, it is a globally recognized solution that enhances financial inclusion, reduces poverty, and strengthens resilience. Social finance tools that are used in the Islamic finance are zakat, the Qad Hassan, the Waqf, which is an endowment, and Sadaqah, which is the voluntarily alms giving. Then the relevance to agriculture, it will support smallholder farmers, especially in developing countries where conventional finance is inaccessible. Yes, conventional finance is in most developing countries, but in the rural areas, a lot of the commercial banks would not locate because it's not viable for them. So access to financing in rural areas is difficult in in a lot of developing countries because of the profit mindset of most of the conventional type banks. So next slide. What the global trends in Islamic finance? In Islamic finance, we see high impact has an high impact mechanism. It combines ethical finance with social protection. So the financing is ethical. Is ethical because it's fair, it's just, and it attends to inclusion, for financial inclusion, and also for protection of, so it's a means of social protection when we think of the Makosi Sharia. It's a empirical good. Research moving from theory to application in the likes of microfinance institutions, agricultural finance, and poverty alleviation. And for communities and environments, for communities that have, and climates where this has been applied, we've seen success in places like Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and even Sudan in Africa, of improved income, livelihood, and sustainability. That's the use of social finance. Qad Hassan for agricultural finance. It's a benevolent, interest-free loan often with flexible repayment. So instead of having the conventional form of finance called Hassan, is when you give a loan without interest, you loan 10 naira or $10 and you give back $10. What are the advantages to the farmers? It would avoid interest payments, flexible repayment cycles, which will be tied to the yields, which will be tied to harvest, and is accessed without collateral um, in this case. And international evidence, we've seen cases in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in Indonesia, where often were often combined with capacity building and risk mitigation. So capacity building needs to come in place because a lot of these farmers are still using the old ways. They need to modernize their farming and to bring better yields, like the use of machines, mechanize their farming, and not still the local form or the olden way of doing the farming. And also the capacity and also risk mitigation, because with technology, the farmers would know, will be trained, and also will be informed on when to farm. Because if, for instance, you look at a rice farm, if you don't know the right time to plant and harvest, because we know with the environment now, things have changed. We have global warming. The rainy seasons are not two again. They're not two seasons. The rainy seasons used to be twice in a year. Now it's 3 times in a year. So if you have a rice farm, if you don't plant at the appropriate time, you might plant and the rain washes all your crops away. So with technology and digital information, the farmers will be informed to plant at the right time for risk mitigation of them losing all their yields. What are the challenges facing farmers in Nigeria as a whole, and especially in northern Nigeria? Northern Nigeria is an agrarian community, and a lot of food comes from northern Nigeria. But even in other parts of Nigeria, the challenges that face most of these smallholders farmers, the interest rates and collateral requirements. Most conventional banks will not give out funds without collateral, and the interest rates are high. The interest rates now in Nigeria is as high as between 35 and 40%. And how do we expect these farmers to survive? Complex loan processing and limited rural bank presence. It's not viable for most commercial banks to thrive in rural areas. So there's limited or non-existence of these banks to be able for them to understand what goes on in these communities and tailor products for them. And dependence on informal lending. So even within the informal lending structures, people would still charge interest, and low productivity and rural poverty. If they don't produce, the eradication of poverty within the rural area will still persist. Would not be achieved. So, Islamic finance in in Nigerian agriculture, the potential role. It's for its using Islamic social finance. It would provide products such as Kodhasan, Mudaraba, the equity investment, Mosharaka and they can also support the agricultural value chain. It's a cultural fit. In Nigeria, the landscape of Nigeria is mostly Muslims in the northern part, and the southern part. They're Muslims, but the population of Muslims are higher in the northern Nigeria. So this Islamic finance and social products, Islamic social finance products would fit culturally because it will be acceptable in these communities who would not take conventional interest loans, and it will align with the social cultural norms, not leaving out also, like I said, the southern part of the country. I'm from the southwest, and they're also predominantly Muslims, but there are more Muslims in the north, and because of the population. And what are the benefits? It will benefit, it will, expand access, reduce reliance on the conventional, and it will support equitable economic growth within the smallholder agrarian communities that will need these facilities. The overview of proposed Zakat and Qad Hassan model. Let me move this video. Okay, what's the purpose? Is to actually address working capital constraints using an integrated Zakat and Qad Hassan approach. Rationale, single instrument insufficient. Single instruments will be insufficient because if we just have the Zakat and we don't have a Qad Hassan, it won't really bring responsibility, within these farmers. And, everybody would just be looking for something free and they would not work hard to produce. So the rationale is to use more than an integrated model where you use more than just one product, where now I'm proposing the Zakat and the Qad Hassan. And a single instrument is insufficient. Integration offers sustainability because we have the zakat, the voluntary giving, and we also have the Qad, which will be revolving and interest-free financing. And what are the principles? It aligns with the Makosi Sharia. Makosi Sharia, as we all know, are the objectives of Sharia, where the preservation of life, the preservation of religion, preservation of property or wealth, the preservation of intellect, and the preservation of livelihood. So this aligns with the Makosi Sharia of social justice, fairness and justice, wealth circulation, and livelihood protection. And the components of the model is the funding sources. So the funding sources would come from the Zakat funds. In Nigeria, we don't have a government. The government does not oversee the Zakat, but there's a Zakat and Sadaqah Foundation, which is widely recognized. It's a non-for-profit organization, and they do good work. So sources and Muslims in the country would send their funds to this Zakat Sadaqah non-for-profit organization, for distribution to those who are eligible. So the funding sources are the Zakat Fund, the Qad Hassan pool. We're also looking at the Waqf, philanthropic donations, and CRS contributions has the funding sources for this model. Institutional actors will be the Zakat management bodies, compliance and allocation. So like I said, in Nigeria, we have a Zakat, Sadaqah, and they have presence around the country. We can also use for this model the Islamic microfinance institutions. That will be for the Qad Hassan part. The agricultural extension agencies for training and advisory, because capacity is important. It's not just about giving money, also training the smallholder farmers on the new ways of doing farming business also, and advisory, knowing when to plant, knowing the new changes in the weather around the areas of these communities is also important information. Development finance institutions, they also come in because they can also be a form for long-term funds for the Qad Hassan, and farmers cooperatives, because the farmers too, they don't work alone, they work in groups, and so they can also watch each other's back to make sure that their colleagues also repay and for monitoring. Next slide. Okay, so what's the operational flow? The operational flow of the model Let me take this video. Okay. Is beneficiary identification. So the associations of farmers, there's extension officers, there's community leaders and Islamic organizations. So all this come into play. The beneficiary identification, most of these smallholder farmers work in groups, and it's also good for them to come as cooperatives or associations because it will be they would also guarantee each other, or they would also watch each other's back to make sure that everybody that takes these funds do what they're supposed to do. So it for continuity and for sustainability. The community leaders will vouch for the farmers, and Islamic organizations would also be needed. Capacity training in financial literacy, agro economy, post-harvest, cooperative lending, and Sharia principles. This is also important. The capacity is important. So it's not just giving them the loans. Yes, they might know how to do the farming, but financial literacy for them to know that the money is given to them is for their farms and not for them to marry another wife. Yes, the zakat is funds that will be given to them and not for them to pay back, but they should use it judiciously. About agroeconomy, about farming and making money out of it post harvest. What happens to the crops after harvest? Because as much as the farmers harvest, they have bumper harvest. The storage, new ways of storage, the transportation, the logistics, the value chain. That's also important. Cooperative lending. Cooperative lending is also, it works because everyone knows each other and they will ensure that things are done correctly. And Sharia principles of Makosik, would enlighten and ensure that everyone knows what they're supposed to do. So capacity building cannot be underemphasized. So zakat allocation. So for production capital, that's for inputs, for training, for equipment, the zakat will come in place because for you to start, you need funds. So the zakat, which is funds that will be given and not returned, would come into place. So zakat will be the first form of funding for the farmers to get the inputs, to get the seedings, to get fertilizer and training and equipment for the mechanized farming. And there is risk mitigation buffers such as guarantees and partial repayment in some situations. So for the Cord Hassan distribution, which is the interest-free, flexible, social and group collateral. So in this situation, the cooperatives can guarantee themselves and it would align with productive capacity in the sense that you don't give people, it aligns with the productive capacity of the farmers. Monitoring and mentorship. So the monitoring is quite important. You need to ensure that you give the funds are used. There's monitoring. You just don't give funds and go to rest. Continuous monitoring, farm visits, productivity assessment, early warning signs. So early warning signs, if there's monitoring, you would see the early warning signs of one not going to repay, and you can put measures in place for the pitfalls not to happen. And market advisory, information about what happens in the market, how they'll be able to take their goods from the rural areas to the cities, the value chain, the logistics and all, and the repayment and recycling. So in order for it to be sustainable, we would encourage for repayment because as they come, they can come back. They take these loans, they pay them back, it will revolve, revolving fund, and it needs to be sustainable because the seed money will be given at the beginning, but at the end of the day, we can't keep running to the financiers for funds. We need it to be sustainable and also to expand the outreach. Okay, so also the governance and Sharia compliance is also very necessary. the Sharia governance in Nigeria, the Sharia Council is called the Advisory Committee of Experts. We need them in place, especially for the Islamic microfinance institutions, and annual Sharia audits of how the funds, the Qad Hassan funds, were utilized. And the community governance, the farmers, the association, the farmers would guarantee themselves. The farmer association and the local lenders would monitor borrowing and compliance, and they will also guarantee themselves. The structures are in place because we need to ensure that the farmers watch over each other, the local leaders, the local rurals, the emirs, the imams would ensure and also monitor these borrowings and ensure compliance with the agreement, the repayment. So apart from the Sharia Council, the community leaders also has a form of ensuring compliance, ensuring that people do right. A lot of people in these communities, they respect their emirs, they respect their scholars, they respect the imams. So they would also, the community governance also in place would ensure for compliance. And financial governance, a separate, so it's necessary to separate the Zakat and Qad Hassan as accounts. The Zakat are accounts that are given of funds that would not expect repayment. But the Qad Hassan is the revolving account. These are the benevolent loans that will be given and needs to be paid back. And this is because this would ensure transparency into reporting and digital payments to reduce linkages. Digitization of these systems would actually expand the reach. As even though the rural areas, communities are not literate, but everybody has a phone and they know how to use a phone. So the digital part of it, the digital payments to be encouraged. So even if people cannot get to the cities, the banks, the agency bankings that, even just next door that open shops, agency banking, where these repayments can be done. So to reduce a situation where someone thinks might complain that it's too far for them to get to where these financial institutions are located for repayment of the Qad Hassan loan. Okay, what are the expected outcomes? The expected outcomes here, financial inclusion, by providing this interest-free working capital for smallholder farmers, it will ensure it would bring financial inclusion. A lot of these smallholder farmers, Muslim in the northern part of Nigeria, would not take conventional loan. Even them not taking conventional loans, it doesn't even exist. So at the end of the day, this would promote financial inclusion, poverty reduction, poverty reliance on informal lenders. So we notice that even when the informal lenders come, they still ask for interest. And at the end of the day, these people don't even get out of poverty. So this would improve livelihoods of using this Islamic social finance model. Agricultural productivity. This would better input use, training, and improve yields. If you get good seeds, if you plant at the right time, you also get capacity, it would improve the yields. Social cohesion, collaborative Islamic-based financing fosters trust, fosters amana. Sustainability, the recycling of the Qad Hassan facility and repayment would also encourage or promote sustainability, because the funds would always be there for them to come back every season, or at the end of the day, for them to move out of poverty and others can use this funding. Sorry. I'm trying to move the video so we can see. Do I do this? Okay, good. So conceptual framework, there are three constraints: resources mobilization. Zakat and Khorasan is equal to sustainable a hybrid fund. So not just having Zakat, but a mix would bring, sorry, the conceptual framework, I said three constraints, is actually three constructs. So the one is resource mobilization, resource, because at the end of the day, to give out these funds, you need the source of funds. Zakat and Khorasan is equal to sustainable financing. So you just don't have the Zakat that comes in. The Khorasan is also a way. I said earlier, other forms we can also have Zakat, Sadaqah and the Waqf. But for this model, I'm proposing Zakat to come in the beginning for the inputs and Khorasan for later, which is to be repaid. The financing mechanism is the Zakat-based productive support, which will be the first level. The Zakat funds will be used. The second stage will be the revolving Khorasan loan. And we also would enhance transparency by using digital tools. And the third construct is development impact. You will have financial inclusion, you will have productivity, you will have income growth, and you'll have sustainable independence. So, next slide. Policy recommendations is to establish a Zakat. I would recommend that we have some policies in place to establish voluntary Zakat governance standards. The Zakat in Nigeria right now is managed by an NGO organization, Zakat and Sadaqah Foundation. It would be good that we can also bring in standards or guidelines promulgated by recognized bodies in Nigeria. The standards, the guidelines for Islamic finance were promulgated by the central bank. We can also have a standards for governance of Sadaqah, so it can put credibility to what is being done by these organizations. To strengthen collaboration among Islamic charities and financial institutions, promote Islamic fintech enabled transparency platform. We cannot overemphasize the importance and the benefits of integrating fintech into financing. It will bring transparency. It would also extend financial institution, build capacity of farmers and cooperatives. Capacity building for the farmers and cooperatives can never be overemphasized, because at least at the end of the day, this would yield higher produce and production. Mobilize private and philanthropic funding. So has this programs commenced, there would still be extended and wide. So has some communities, this model works, other communities will also look forward to it. So funding is important, and for it to be sustainable, to mobilize private and philanthropic funding, and institutionalize monitoring and impact measurement. If this is utilized or implemented, at least in northern Nigeria, maybe we start with a state, Kano State, or we start in Sokoto State. We institutionalize monitoring and impact measurement. By seeing how this model works, it can be institutionalized in other parts of the country, even in parts that are not predominantly Muslim farmers. If they see how it works and we can measure the impact that it has and brought farmers out of poverty, it could be implemented in other climates. As we can see, these models have worked very well in Indonesia, have worked very well in Malaysia, have worked even in Sudan in Africa. So why not? And in conclusion, Qad Hassan Zakat integrated financing model offers a Sharia compliant, culturally appropriate, especially for Northern Nigeria, and a sustainable solution to smallholders' working capital constraints in Nigeria. The model combines Zakat for immediate support and Qad Hassan for ongoing financing. Successful integration depends on institutional collaboration, governance, and capacity building. If properly implemented, it is expected to enhance productivity, food security, and rural livelihoods. Thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation. I thank Professor Zaid for impacting so much to us and for encouraging us that what we've learned, we should try to implement it in our communities. I see this as a product that I will try to promote and to see its implementation, and hopefully this will bring poverty reduction, inclusion, and the propagation of Islamic social finance in Nigeria. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.